Vancouver International Airport is one of Canada's busiest and most important transportation hubs, serving more than 26 million passengers a year and connecting British Columbia to destinations across the globe. But its origins were far more modest. Built on farmland in Richmond during the early 1930s, YVR grew out of the need for a permanent land-based airport to serve the Lower Mainland. Over the decades, it expanded through wartime necessity, post-war demand, and international growth, evolving into a strategic gateway between North America and the Pacific Rim. On March 25, 1910, a crowd gathered at Mineru Park Racetrack in Richmond to witness what would become a milestone in British Columbia's aviation history. American stunt pilot Charles K. Hamilton was in town with his Curtiss Rhymes Racer, a fragile-looking biplane that looked more like a flying bicycle than a serious machine. Already famous across North America for his daring flights and rough landings, Hamilton was in Richmond to perform a series of exhibition flights arranged locally at the racetrack. Using the infield as a makeshift runway, he took to the skies before thousands of spectators, marking the first powered flight of a heavier-than-air machine in British Columbia. The flight wasn't long or high, but it was enough to prove that heavier-than-air flight had arrived on the West Coast. Over the following days, Hamilton performed several more flights from the field, thrilling crowds and turning skeptics into believers. At the time, no dedicated airfields existed in the region, so racetracks, fairgrounds, and open farmland doubled as runways. Hamilton's flight at Mineru Park helped ignite public fascination with aviation and cemented Richmond as one of the earliest hubs of flight activity in British Columbia. Mineru Park Airfield quickly outgrew its shared space with the racetrack and moved to Milligan Farm at Terra Nova, where a larger field was available. While Richmond witnessed the province's first flight, the next major leap for aviation in the region came not from land, but from water. In 1919, the federal government established a naval air station at Jericho Beach in Vancouver. Located along the edge of English Bay, this base became home to the Royal Canadian Air Service, later the Royal Canadian Air Force, and was primarily used for seaplane operations. With World War I underway, the military saw aviation as a critical new frontier, and Vancouver's coastal location made Jericho Beach ideal for patrolling the Pacific. Jericho operated as a flying boat base, where pilots trained on floatplanes like the Curtiss HS-2L and Vickers Vedette. These aircraft were launched directly from the shoreline, performing reconnaissance, search and rescue, and later survey work across the BC coast. Through the 20s and early 30s, Jericho Beach served as the West Coast's primary military aviation hub. But while it played a key role in advancing Canada's air capability, it became clear that Vancouver needed more than a military outpost. Pressure was building for a proper land-based airport. In 1927, Charles Lindbergh, fresh off his record-setting solo transatlantic flight, was invited to visit the city. He declined, stating there is no fit field to land on. The snub was a wake-up call for city planners. One of the earliest proposals for a land-based airport came in 1928, when Spanish Banks, just west of Jericho Beach Seaplane Base, was seriously considered as the site for Vancouver's main airport. Leading the charge was World War I flying ace and aviator pioneer Donald R. McLaren. His company, Pacific Airways, proposed an ambitious plan to turn the tidal flats into a major aviation hub. Just a few years earlier in 1923, city planners had floated a different idea, turning Spanish Banks into a gigantic industrial port. The plan never materialized, but it set a precedent that the area was open to large-scale development. The airport design would have included 3 runways, a seaplane harbor, hangars, customs facilities, and even recreational amenities such as a 20,000-seat stadium, swimming pools, and a winter garden. With a projected cost of approximately $3.1 million, the proposal faced significant challenges. Despite initial support, there were concerns of the potential impact on the surrounding residential areas and the high costs associated with land reclamation. With Spanish Banks now off the table, McLaren turned his focus to Sea Island, a flat, largely undeveloped area of farmland and marsh near the mouth of the Fraser River. Its proximity to water made it ideal for accommodating both land planes and seaplanes. In 1929, the city of Vancouver acquired approximately 478 acres on the island, backed by federal support and a $600,000 investment to begin construction on what would become Vancouver's first true land airport. During construction, land-based flights were operated from a temporary Vancouver airport at Lansdowne Park Racetrack. While not ideal for a center of aviation, it filled the requirements for the time it took to design and build the airport on Sea Island. Construction moved quickly. By 1931, a gravel runway about 915 meters long was cleared and graded. A small wooden terminal, known then as the Administration Building, was built the same year. Canadian Airways became the first tenant, setting up a hangar and operating flights for both passengers and mail. The terminal was simple but effective, a 2-story wooden structure with a waiting area, dispatch desk, and a weather office staffed by the Department of Transport. With no control tower, pilots had to coordinate directly with ground staff by radio. Sea Island had a leg up on other regional airfields. It offered 24-hour operations thanks to new radio equipment, beacon lights, and weather support. These upgrades made YVR one of the few Canadian airports at the time with a reliable night flying capability. By 1934, traffic had already doubled from just a few years earlier, and by the late 30s, the small municipal airport was already showing signs of outgrowing its original design. But it wasn't until the outbreak of the Second World War that expansion really took off. In 1940, the Canadian government designated part of Sea Island for use by the Royal Canadian Air Force. A military training base, RCAF Station Sea Island, was established adjacent to the civilian airport. This move transformed the site into a dual-purpose facility, half civilian, half military. The military rapidly built new infrastructure. Hard-surface runways replaced the original grass strips. Hangars, barracks, fuel depots, and maintenance buildings appeared almost overnight. A control tower and radar installations were added to support round-the-clock operations. At its peak, the base trained thousands of aircrews under the British Commonwealth Air Training Plan, one of the largest aviation training programs in the world. Just steps away from these bustling training fields, Boeing was gearing up to play its own critical part in Canada's war effort, transforming Sea Island into a key production hub for military aircraft. During the war, Boeing manufactured military aircraft, including the Canso flying boat, and needed a local workforce that could respond quickly and operate around the clock. The federal government constructed a small residential community on the northeast corner of Sea Island. It was called Burkeville, named after Stanley Burke, who was the president of Boeing Aircraft of Canada. Burkeville remained a federal government town site until the 70s, when it was sold to the city of Richmond. To this day, it remains one of the only residential neighborhoods on Sea Island. With wartime funding pouring into YVR, the civilian side of the airport also saw significant improvements. Under the guise of national defense, the Department of Transport invested heavily in upgrading taxiways, enhancing drainage systems, and installing permanent lighting. Advancements that positioned YVR to become a modern, fully equipped airport ready for post-war aviation growth. These improvements laid the foundation for Vancouver to become a true international gateway after the war. By 1945, Vancouver Airport was no longer just a local airfield. It had become a strategic aviation hub, with infrastructure that would serve commercial air traffic for decades to come. In 1948, it was officially renamed Vancouver International Airport to reflect its growing global role. In February 1949, a fire destroyed the original terminal building, damaging key airport facilities. Temporary setups kept operations going until a new terminal was completed in 1950. In the 50s, YVR began building new runways to handle the rapid growth of commercial aviation and the shift towards larger, faster jet aircraft. The original 1930s-era triangle layout, designed for small propeller planes, was no longer suitable for the demands of modern air travel. Airlines were preparing for the jet age, and YVR needed longer, stronger, and more efficient runways to accommodate increasing passenger traffic and heavier planes. The solution was a new straight east-west runway that would become 0826, followed shortly by a diagonal crosswind runway, improving both capacity and safety. Runways are numbered by their magnetic heading, rounded to the nearest 10 degrees. So when a pilot lines up for runway 08, they're heading roughly 80 degrees magnetic. The opposite end of the runway is labeled 26, or 260 degrees. This system uses magnetic north, not true north. In Vancouver, magnetic north sits about 16 degrees east of true north, meaning 80 degrees magnetic lines up to roughly 96 degrees true. This offset is called magnetic declination, and as it shifts over time, runway numbers can change. That's what happened to YVR's crosswind runway. Originally numbered 1230, it was renamed 1331 in July 2014 after its magnetic heading drifted past the threshold. Although rarely used, runway 1331 serves as a vital crosswind runway, providing operational flexibility during adverse wind conditions. By the mid-60s, the aviation industry was undergoing rapid changes with the advent of the jetliner, which demanded more advanced airport facilities. Recognizing this need, YVR embarked on constructing a new main terminal, strategically located centrally on Sea Island. This terminal officially opened in 1968, featuring modern amenities designed to accommodate the increasing passenger volumes and the requirements of jet travel. After the transition, the South Terminal was repurposed to handle regional and charter flights. Today it caters to airlines such as Pacific Coastal Airlines and Central Mountain Air, providing essential connectivity to various destinations within British Columbia. The South Terminal also encompasses facilities for floatplane and helicopters, maintaining its relevance to YVR's operations. By the early 1980s, YVR was handling over 5 million passengers a year, more than double what it saw just 2 decades earlier. The main terminal was holding up, but runway capacity was becoming a bottleneck. The airport's 2-runway layout was struggling to keep up with the growing traffic, especially during bad weather or peak hours. Talks began about building a 3rd runway, a new parallel strip north of the main runway that would allow simultaneous takeoffs and landings, improving capacity and safety. The proposed location cut close to residential neighborhoods in South Vancouver, raising concerns about noise, environmental damage, and the destruction of sensitive shoreline habitat. Construction on the 3rd runway began in 1994, and despite ongoing protests, the new strip officially opened in November 1996. At 3,000 meters long, it was built for modern jetliners and equipped with advanced landing systems for low visibility conditions. With 2 parallel runways, YVR finally had the flexibility and capacity to handle increasing air traffic efficiently. With the 3rd runway complete and passenger traffic continuing to rise, attention turned back to the terminal. In 1996, YVR opened a major addition, the International Terminal Wing, designed to handle the growing number of trans-Pacific flights. This expansion added gates capable of handling wide-body aircraft, modern customs and immigration facilities, and more spacious departure lounges. What set this terminal apart wasn't just the capacity, it was the experience. YVR broke away from the generic airport mold and began incorporating West Coast themes and Indigenous art into its architecture. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the North Shore Mountains, and large-scale installations, including Bill Reed's iconic The Spirit of Haida Gwaii Jade Canoe, gave the airport a sense of place and cultural identity. It wasn't just an airport, it was an introduction to British Columbia. By the year 2000, annual passenger traffic had climbed to over 16 million, with YVR positioning itself as a key gateway between Asia and North America. Continued renovations expanded the domestic terminal, adding more gates and improved baggage handling systems. In the lead up to the 2010 Winter Olympics, YVR undertook another wave of upgrades. The Canada Line, a rapid transit link between the airport and downtown Vancouver, opened in 2009, dramatically improving access. Further enhancements to security, customs, and international arrival areas ensured the airport was ready to handle the global spotlight. Vancouver International Airport has earned a reputation as one of the most well-regarded airports in the world. It's been named Best Airport in North America by Skytrax over a dozen times, recognized for its efficiency, design, and customer experience. Looking ahead, the Vancouver Airport Authority launched its YVR 2037 master plan to guide future growth while balancing sustainability, innovation, and community priorities. The plan outlines a long-term vision that includes a major terminal expansion to accommodate up to 35 million passengers annually, the construction of a new runway, upgraded ground transportation access, and infrastructure to support next-generation aircraft. Environmental considerations are central, with commitments to enhance wildlife protection, reduce carbon emissions, and partner with Indigenous communities in land stewardship. As global travel rebounds, YVR is positioning itself not just as a transport hub, but as a model for future forward airport design in Canada.